1, 2, 3, and bang! You there, right there, behind the screen, have been rapidly transported into the Elder Scrolls universe, a soul destined to be thrust into the world of Tamriel as one of the 10 playable races of the Elder Scrolls game series. But the big question on the tip of everyone's tongue is, which race would you be? Which race is worth it? Is it worthwhile being an Argonian? Is it worthwhile being a Dark Elf? These are the questions that we endeavour to answer in this series of videos. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Scott from Fudge Muppet, and today I'm back to bring you a brand new episode of this Is It Worth It series. In the description below are all the previous episodes, and I will add in future episodes as they are made. Now, of course, this kind of video has lots of variables, including personal preference, but we will do our best to analyze each of the races and determine whether or not they are worth being within a lore context. So today, let's look at the pros and cons, the benefits and detriments of being a Wood Elf. Is being a Wood Elf worth it? So before we dive into the topic itself, let's set some things straight. In the previous videos in the series, we explained the parameters, but just to recap, we are making two assumptions to add some consistency to the evaluation. One, we are assuming that each race is born in their homeland, i.e. Argonian in Blackmarsh or Redguard in Hammerfell. And two, we are talking about a contemporary context, meaning the time of Skyrim, which is the 201st year of the 4th era. But yes, that is all we need to know. Time to get down into the nitty-gritty. So for this video, if we were a soul in the Elder Scrolls universe that could choose to be any of the playable races, would being a Wood Elf be worth it? Let's begin. The Bosmer, the Wild Folk, the Wood Elves, the Short Elves, the little pointy-eared fellows who live in the dense, lush forests of Valenwood. Commonly known as friendly and curious, they are the elves that turned away from the strict dogmas of High Elven society in favour of a more romantic existence in the wilds. But it's not all quaint fairy-like tea parties in the forest. Quite the opposite, in fact. Tea and biscuits are likely to be replaced by a giant hunk of meat and a drink of Jagger, which is a fermented pig's milk. The Wood Elves of Valenwood are exclusively carnivorous and also cannibalistic, as their green pact with the forest god Ifri dictates. So this is something you would absolutely have to consider when deciding whether or not being a Wood Elf is worth it. Would you be able to stomach a diet of exclusively meat and milk, perhaps also honey, as it does not seem to interfere with the pact? This green pact states that no plant life in Valenwood is to be damaged, destroyed, or consumed by the Bosmer. So implicit in that is that they only consume non-plant products, literally the exact opposite of a vegan. According to their religious code, it is immoral to damage the flora, so you certainly would have less variety of food. You could instead tuck into a tasty chunk of rot meth, which does not sound all that appealing. But thankfully there's no actual crystal meth involved, it's just fermented meat, seasoned with thunderbug organs, and it takes years to make. It is considered a precious ritual beverage that symbolizes the muscle of the boar, the power of the forest, and the strength of the Bosmer people. No wedding can take place without it. Now, if your chief concern at this moment is whether or not you could stomach this kind of diet, I'm about to step it up a notch. You see, the Bosmer can't waste any meat at all. That includes their fallen enemies. The meat mandate of the Green Pact demands that they consume what they kill, so there is no waste. So then the Bosmer who adhere to the pact strictly often engage in fasting before their battles, so that they may consume their enemies afterwards. Family members of the killer may also assist in the consumption of the fallen enemy. Some Wood Elves will even go as far to file their teeth into sharp points to make for the easier ripping and tearing of flesh. Naturally, this kind of information known to a foreigner can make their interactions with you a little uncomfortable. So, can you eat people? How about fermented milk? What about rot meth? For many, I imagine this is where you tap out, but let's just say that you can stomach all that. What else does the Bosmer have on offer? Well, like other elves, life expectancy does not seem to be as cut and dry as it is with humans. Instead of dying around 70 to 100 years old, you could potentially live many centuries, which is a giant plus for pretty much all of the elven races. Simply put, your life is longer, and you have more time to do different things. Bosmer are also known for being very quick, nimble, and agile, and more specifically, very stealthy and also natural-born archers. They are said to snatch and fire arrows in one beautiful continuous motion. Rumors even tell of their invention of the bow. So if your ambitions lie within the professions such as thief, assassin, hunter, spy, combat archer, or scout, then Wood Elf may very well be for you. Seems rather straightforward, right? But there is another catch to the Green Pact. You see, the supposed origin of the Wood Elves is that they were the ooze, the ever-shape-shifting primordial chaotic craziness. But as part of the Green Pact, Ifri gave them forms as the Bosmer and prevented them from wildly shifting into these different crazy creatures. In times of great strife, the Bosmer can perform a ritual called the Wild Hunt, where they return to their primordial forms and wreak absolute havoc on their enemies, often ending in the carnage of not only their enemies, but also themselves in a cannibalistic orgy once the enemy targets run out. Such events are uncommon, and the Bosmer do not like to talk about it, but the ability is there. Living as a Bosmer in Valenwood, there are some adjustments to be made compared to living in the rest of Tamriel, namely the whole carnivorous, cannibalistic lifestyle, but that same Green Pact dictates more than just diet. Due to the restriction of destroying flora, any wood used for furniture or items must be imported, which could be an inconvenience. They do, however, have the ability to communicate with the forest to encourage it to grow into houses for themselves, but you can't go carve yourself a spoon. If you're an avid woodworker, I would not recommend being a wood elf of Valenwood. Most of your tools are going to be made from the various bones or leathers of the many creatures you kill. Also, since you can't go cutting down trees, living in Valenwood is often like living in a thick forest with lots of overgrowth, which makes lighting torches at night risky. However, there are glowing fungi around and torch bugs, and additionally, navigating Valenwood is quite the task for the unlearned individual. In addition to actually navigating the terrain, there are many wild beasts such as giant wasps, horvors, and crocodiles that could snap you up, and as well as that, there are other sentient groups of people that may or may not be opposed to you, such as the Imgur, centaurs, or the wood orcs. However, the Bosmer have been accepting of other races in Valenwood, such as the Aelids, after the Elysian Rebellion, and perhaps this has created some friendly reciprocation. Before we move on to talk about living in Valenwood in a political context, let's talk about two more of their curious traditions, the Mourning Wars and the Rite of Theft. Mourning Wars is a very, very strange custom. Many Bosmer tribes practice this oddity. When a tribe member is killed, he or she is symbolically replaced via a hostage-taking raid on a neighboring tribe. If the deceased was an especially powerful or prestigious member of the tribe, multiple captives may be taken to replace them. The captive or captives undergo a period of physical torture supposedly to test their worthiness, and then they are joyously welcomed into the abducting clan. Traditionally, the victim was given the deceased tribe member's position, possessions, and family. So imagine being in a Bosmer tribe, and one day you get kidnapped by a bunch of psychos, tortured for a while, and then they accept you into their family and clan, symbolically, but also practically replacing a dead person. It's really, really damn weird. The Rite of Theft, on the other hand, is a little more palatable. The Bosmer steal from each other, and upon return of the stolen item, they demand a boon equal to the item's worth. So if I, a wood elf, managed to steal your prized diamond ring, I could then return it to you and demand a prize equal to its worth. As you can imagine, this kind of custom encourages thievery, and it's this kind of culture that would then produce some of the finest thieves. So if all you want to do is be a thief in Tamriel, then perhaps being a wood elf with their natural stealthy, agile abilities, plus living in a culture with the Rite of Theft, is the right move for you. Now, the final big consideration, I think, for the Bosmer of Valenwood is that they are part of the Aldmeri Dominion, and to speak out against the Thalmor would seem to be a very, very dangerous move, considering that many of the families that have spoken out against them seem to disappear in these cleansings. Then again, you may be a supporter of the Thalmor, deployed as an assassin or spy with your natural Bosmeri skills. Maybe that is appealing to you. So ultimately, the considerations here are A, could you be an elf and side with the Thalmor? B, could you be anti-Thalmor and keep quiet about it, or just avoid it? Or C, would you just abandon Valenwood and seek to travel Tamriel? Travel and opportunity are a consideration for all of our worth it choices, and being a wood elf is a bit of a mixed bag. As we've discussed opportunities in professions like hunting, thieving, assassination, they would be very abundant, and at face value, wood elves are usually smaller and less intimidating looking, known to be quite kind and curious, friendly to most, so this stereotype would be favourable in most interactions across Tamriel. However, there are various oddities that are known, such as cannibalism and the wild hunt, and that may lead to some prejudice depending where you are. In addition to that, you would have to deal with any anti-elven, anti-Aldmeri Dominion sentiment, even if you aren't necessarily a supporter. So knowing all this, all of these considerations, do I think being a wood elf is worth it? If my soul was transported into the Elder Scrolls universe, would I be a wood elf? As much as I love the wood elf culture, and I think it's really interesting and unique, I don't know if I personally would want to be a part of it. A romantic lifestyle, hunting and living with family in a bountiful forest of beauty does sound appealing, but on the other hand, I could have those things as another race without having to experience the crazy cultural customs like Mourning Wars or cannibalism. Or, actually be able to have the many conveniences afforded to us by plant materials like wood and cotton. Life as a wood elf in Valenwood has some major red flags for a lot of people, but perhaps some people are okay with cannibalism and things like rite of theft, but for me, I don't think I'd particularly like that kind of life. Potentially, it could be worth it to be a wood elf living outside of Valenwood and travelling, but honestly, I feel like I could be a high elf or dark elf, be taller and more magically adept, and still get the long lifespan. Ultimately, for me, personally, being a wood elf, assuming I'm at least born in and grew up in Valenwood, is just not worth it. What do you guys think? How does a life of a Bosmer appeal to you? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Let me know what race you want to see discussed next, and like the video if you are loving this series. It really helps us out and lets us know what you guys enjoy most, and we always encourage you guys to be vocal about what you like. Thanks again, my name is Scott from Fudge Muppet, and I'll be back to nerd out with you again next time.